Where do you live?
In the city.
You have a house?
Apartment.
Or a rent?
Rent.
What do you do for a living?
Lots of things.
Where's your office?
I don't have one.
How come?
I don't need one.
Where's your wife?
Don't have one.
How come?
It's a long story.
Do you have kids?
No, I don't.
How come?
It's an even longer story.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin,
I'm Jake.
and this is Movie Matters. Today we're talking about the John Candy classic, Uncle Buck. From 1989, John Hughes. I found this out. This is pretty funny. In other countries, it's titled Alone with Our Uncle.
Yeah,
Doesn't that sound fucking creepy?
that's super creepy.
Yeah. There was also an Indian Uncle Buck remake called Uncle Bun.
God.
Yeah, so I've been waiting for this one for a long time, ever since we made the podcast. This is one of my favorite 80s movies of all time. It's one of my favorite childhood movies of all time. I grew up on this movie. This is the movie that made me love John Candy. It holds a very special place in my heart, and I've seen it so many times. And watching it again recently, it's still amazing. I know this was your first time watching, Jake. Let me have it. Let me know your thoughts.
I liked it a lot.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's like, I honestly, I don't know why I never watched it.
Wild.
Like, I obviously knew that it existed. I don't know. Like, I kind of thought it was like a kid's movie. So like, I wasn't super interested in it, which it's not at all. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what, why I just like kept putting it off. But yeah, I'm glad we watched this. Yeah, I loved it. It's hilarious. This is like the most John Candy, like his acting in this is like the most like iconic, I think.
Yeah.
Of the
Absolutely.
4 movies we've watched this month. So yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, he's great in it. All the actors are really good in it.
Yeah. This movie and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles are the best John Candy movies, period, if you
Yeah.
ask me. And for those who are tuning in, we did a review on Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Obviously, we would have done it again for this month since it's John Candy month, but we've already done it. So go back and
Yeah.
check that. We did that
Like,
last year.
I think this same week, like right before
Probably.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, because it's a great Thanksgiving movie. I will probably watch it next week, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, just because it's classic. It's a tradition. This movie I try and watch every year. I just recently, a number of months ago, I showed it to my girlfriend who'd never seen it, and she loved it. And we watched it, and I just remember, I just had a blast with it. And I had another blast with this, which is good because, again, with this podcast, I kind of put things under a microscope a little bit and kind of dive a little deeper into it. And I take notes and all that, and I look up trivia. And obviously the movie still held up for me, which is great, especially coming from my childhood. So I have a lot of backstory for this movie, just in my own personal life, kind of. And I'll try and do an abridged version of it. But I was obsessed with this movie as a kid. When I say obsessed, I literally mean obsessed. I used to carry this movie around, carry it on VHS. I had the VHS tape. I would carry it everywhere we went. And if there was a VCR anywhere, I had to put it in and watch it. That's how much I loved this movie. Like, I remember we were on vacation, and they had Uncle Buck. Like, I was in vacation in Florida, and this hotel had a little like library of movies you could rent for your room, and they had Uncle Buck, and I went apeshit because I had to watch it while I was on vacation as a kid. Like, yeah, this movie and Planes, Trains were like so near and dear to my childhood. I just grew up on these movies and grew up with John Candy, and I'm glad we did this month for him. And I wish he was still alive making movies because he's great. and I'm excited to watch more of his movies because I've not seen every single one, like I mentioned in our last review. But this movie is just very special to me because of that, because it's such a big part of my childhood, and I love it so much. And it's, God, we'll get to the ending, but the ending makes me, it's like Planes, Trains with the freeze frame with John Candy. It makes me like tear up every time because it's so good. And obviously because he's no longer on this earth, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's one of, if not, it is my favorite John Hughes movie. Yeah, and I mean, it's this and Planes, Trains, and they're both John Hughes, and they're both perfect.
Yeah, and this is 89.
Yeah.
So this is the last John Hughes movie to come out in the 80s, I would guess, right?
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Which is kind of neat. And like, yeah, I think that, we've watched now 3 Hughes movies for the show.
I'm excited for more. I mean, we did. Yeah. Let's
yeah, I mean,
see.
there's a bunch more that we're gonna work through over time. But I mean, this one, I mean, like, I think both of us have seen quite a few of them that we haven't covered yet, in addition to the ones that we have. And I think the writing in this movie is like peak. Like it's very, very good. Like, he really strikes a really nice balance between the, I don't want to call it drama, but like the like human story, that like he's trying to tell, and these like totally like wacky kind of comedic bits, that make the movie so great. So yeah, it's just, I would agree. It's like peak writing for Hughes.
Yeah, I mean, the movie starts off with it nailing the family dynamic right away.
Yeah.
Just the siblings arguing. You've got the older sister that thinks she's in charge, and you've got these 2 little kids that are, Macaulay Culkin's getting chased by a bully in the beginning. And yeah, it's great. And
the parents are absent right off the bat.
I mean, that's another John Hughes staple.
Yeah.
And it takes place in the North Shore, which is where Jake and I grew up in Illinois.
Yep.
It's, and that's classic John Hughes staple is Chicago as the backdrop and the location. The movie was originally intended to be shot in St. Louis, but it had an unseasonably warm winter that they relocated it to Chicago, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah,
especially knowing that Hughes loves Chicago.
Yeah.
And apparently basically all the sets for this were built in the high school, in New Trier High School in Illinois.
That's
and
funny.
like the interior of the house, all those were sets built, which is really cool. And really interesting. And I mean, the exterior of the house was shot in Evanston, which is great. And we're familiar with Evanston, of course, in Illinois. But there's obviously a lot of cool kind of like Chicago references in this movie. You've got John Candy, Uncle Buck in Cubs jersey, and he is living next to Wrigley
right
Field.
by Wrigley, yeah.
Yeah, which is awesome. We love that. Jake and I, we in our middle school, high school days, we'd go to Cubs games all the time, which was always great. I'll never forget that. So that's always cool seeing stuff like that. Again, it's this movie's peak childhood for me. It's peak childhood. Yeah, and the writing, the characters are they're all different, which I like. I mean, you've got the 2 youngest kids that are very similar, but it doesn't really focus on them, and it doesn't really focus on the parents. It just really focuses on John Candy, Uncle Buck's relationship, and Tia, the relationship between them 2. But it all ties together with making her they help each other. And that's what's so good about this movie is like Tia is not an asshole anymore. And Buck becomes not a selfish guy that doesn't want a family and doesn't like responsibility. And they both turn a corner, and that's what makes a good movie. And I know we've preached it before, is the evolution of a character. That's what makes a good story, and that's what's good writing, in my opinion, is the character needs to go on a journey, and you need to go on that journey with them, and you can potentially relate to that character. And this is full of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like Hughes is so good at this type of like story arc.
Yeah.
You know, like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is another great example of, you know, an asshole being slowly converted into a more decent human being, you know, by being exposed to John Candy's character, who's like the most like nice person in the world,
obnoxious,
but also
nice person.
obnoxious, and but like needs to he needs to kind of, Steve Martin's character has to grow as a person, you know, to get through that journey with him, you know. And like I mean, almost all of John Hughes's movies have that kind of character like transformation in the end, and like everyone learns something, you know, in the movie, like, which like doesn't happen anymore. You know, like people aren't like I feel like you don't walk away from movies anymore like learning like a decent life lesson, you know, or at least like, even if it's simple, like don't be a dick, you know, like it just doesn't happen in movies anymore.
Yeah, they're forgetting the fundamentals of storytelling.
Yeah,
you need to go back to that. Again, it's why we did this podcast. They don't make movies like they used to, and this movie is a prime example of that. Like, they don't make them like this anymore. I mean, it's a heartwarming movie as well. Like, it's just so well done. I mean, I have nothing but good things to say about this movie. And if you haven't seen it, like Jake hadn't, you are doing a disservice to yourself because it's incredible. Like you said, there's among all this greatness, there is great comedy. Like, there's such great little bits, you know, Uncle Buck waking up in the middle of the night and clearing his throat, which is kind of a mild reference to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, I feel like. His facial expressions when he wakes up are golden. And then he's getting ready and he's pulling stuff out of his closet and a bowling ball hits him in the head. Like, that's slapstick. That's like something out of the Three Stooges. But it's so funny and so good in this movie. Like, I've seen this movie hundreds of times probably, and I still laugh at every single joke in this movie and every single funny part.
Yeah. And like, what's like my biggest takeaway on the comedy is that there's so many like short moments that are hilarious, and like a lot of it is Candy's like dialogue, and it's just like his like you know, witty responses to people, like, and just like kind of, you know, getting in a quick jab before the scene ends, you know, and like those are some of the funniest parts of the movie in my opinion. And like the eternal like torment of the boyfriend is just so funny.
Good. It's so good. Bug, what's his last name? Spray? It's one of my favorite lines in the entire movie. So good. Yeah, and it's like should we talk about that right now? Because there's all such great scenes with the boyfriend.
Yeah.
So I just love when, well, we got to talk about his car real quick to get to the first scene with the boyfriend. The car is iconic in this, and it's like a 1970s, mid-70s Mercury Marquis, and it's like a piece of shit, but it's actually awesome in my opinion. And it's a very Uncle Buck car. Like, him driving that is so classic, and it's smoking out the tailpipe and backfiring. which
Yeah.
they used like shotgun and firecrackers to make the sound effects for that, which is hilarious. They put like transmission oil in the car to make it like smoke, which is pretty
Fun
funny.
fact: one of my wife's family friends' dad is actually the mechanic that outfitted the car to smoke like that.
What?
Yeah,
No way.
yeah. She just told me that the other day.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Wow. Small world. It's because we lived in Chicago.
Yeah, it's because it's Chicago.
Yeah, so like you first meet the boyfriend and she's like, cover your ears. He's like, why? And then the car backfires and scares everyone. I love how everyone like shrieks down. It's so good. And then he mocks his laugh. He's like, hee, 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 hee. And that's so good. It's like, ever hear of a tune-up? Ever hear of a ritual killing?
Yeah,
Like, for this, there's some dark moments in this movie for it being PG, and I think that's just, John Hughes being a little sick in the head. But yeah, that part's really funny.
yeah. I just love. Like, I mean, like the more he interacts with Bug, the more like unhinged he starts acting, which is just so
Yeah, there's some
funny.
pretty wild things. Like him showing up to the like party that they're having outside, and he's like, "Hey, I just was gonna see if we could bury the hatchet. Speaking of which, I got it in the car. Let me show you." Goes in his trunk, pulls out the hatchet. Hey, here it is. Like you could shave a gnat with that thing. Like, or I could circumcise a gnat with it, which is
Circumcise
like
a gnat.
pretty aggressive to say in a PG movie.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, gnat, bug." Like, so
Do
good.
you think there's a similarity there?
Yeah. And then, he goes to the party because Tia leaves and like goes, like runs away basically. And he goes to the party to save her, which is great. And it's a great turning point in the movie where he doesn't really hold a steady job. He's kind of a deadbeat. That's why his family doesn't really talk to him, and he's this last resort to watch these kids. And he basically goes to the horse track to gamble. Like he's not a responsible adult. And he's gonna go and he's taking the kids because Tia was supposed to watch them. And he has them in the car, and he has that turning point, which is great. You always have to have that turning point in a movie, if you ask me. And he's like, "Look, that my family now is more important than gambling and making money for the year." And he makes a sacrifice for that, and it's a great character turning point. And he goes to find her, and he goes to this party, and he's dancing, and like he gets his hat stolen. I love that. And then he drills through the door, and the door opens, and you get that iconic shot with smoke and him holding the drill with a cigar in his mouth. And it's not Tia, which that whole scene is kind of uncomfortable, especially looking at it at an older age, because the guy's basically like, this girl's telling Bug no, and he's like, "I'm not taking that for an answer," which is fucked up and creepy. And
but I mean, Bug is a creepy fox, so
yeah, it's a creepy bug. He's an insect.
never trust
a parasite.
someone wearing a beret. That's my takeaway from the movie.
In Die Hard 2, isn't the main villain wearing a beret? I'm pretty sure. William Sadler.
Could be, yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Think about it.
Either that or I'm thinking of the like other general dude, the one black guy that's like part of the military team.
It's that guy. I'm pretty
It's
sure.
that guy? Okay.
Yeah.
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 Well, and he turns out to be bad, doesn't he? Isn't he bad?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, we gotta rewatch that movie. But that's
I've
90.
only seen that like once. And I
You've
was
only
like,
seen
this
Die Hard
movie's
2
not
once?
that great.
It's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. It's good. Especially you
The
got
third
dude, you
one's
got-
better.
I know we're getting off topic, and I do like when we do this. Dude, in the beginning, William Sadler's butt fucking naked, like all oiled up, doing
like
fucking,
Tai Chi or whatever.
Yeah, like to like watching the news or something. It's fucking weird.
I mean, well, I will say the Yippee-Ki-Yay moment in Die Hard 2 is pretty awesome, though.
Yeah, with the lighter.
He lights the jet fuel on fire and it blows the plane up.
Yep, it is 1990. I just double checked. It's 90. Yeah, and the whole he stabs a dude in the face with an ice pick, dude, or an icicle.
Yeah.
It's a good. I gotta rewatch it. I haven't watched it in a while. It's a good movie. I like it. It's people give it too much shit. I think it's good. I think it's fun.
I'd say that's probably fair.
Yeah. All right. So back on topic though. Don't trust a person with a beret.
Yeah.
Because they might try to RAPEU or KILLU. Hopefully people can spell. Yeah. So I like that, and then he kidnaps him and puts him in his trunk, which is also fucked up. And but then hits golf balls at him, which is hilarious and cool and funny. But again, it's a movie. It's supposed to be goofy. It's John Hughes. Yeah, I like that. I like that they get their revenge, and that also is how him and Tia bond.
Yeah.
Because Uncle Buck is right the whole time that he says, I know guys like that. I know deadbeats like this that are just preying on girls. Like, so, I mean, I guess that whole scene with him in the bed does tie into him saying that and makes him, like you said, a creep.
Yeah.
But again, it's another turning point for Tia's character, which I like. And I like that the turning points are so close together and they're connected. And again, it's good writing, it's good filmmaking. And she obviously bonds with him because she was like, oh yeah, you were right all along. He is a creep. And they bond over tormenting him, which is great.
Yeah. Well, and then they establish trust. When Buck says, like, don't worry, I'm not going to, like, tell your parents and, like, this is between us, let's move on, which is, like, I think what's kind of lacking in that family dynamic through the whole movie is trust, between the characters. And, like, that's, another good writing mechanic is, Buck the outsider, oddball is the one that ends up building that bridge. And repairing the family, basically. That's just really good writing.
Yeah, it is. And it's simple too. It's very simple. And that's how it works. It's like the reason Tia's an asshole is, one, she's a teenager and she doesn't know any better. And two, they like moved out of Indianapolis and like uprooted her from her friends and her high school and all that. Granted, she's obviously sucking face with Bug, but like it's such a simple, like you just pick up on it. There's things you pick up on are shown that he doesn't necessarily need to tell you. And that's also good writing too and good directing.
Well, and like it's implied right out of the gate, like we said, like the parents are kind of absent, either physically or like mentally, like, and like you kind of get that in the dinner scene where the mom asks about hockey and the kid's like, I haven't played hockey in like months, like or whatever. Like, what are you talking about?
And the dad backs it up and is like, oh well, then I'm not going to get you a hockey stick for your birthday. It's like, well, he didn't realize either.
Yeah, so it's they're clearly on the same page, which is the wrong page. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Again, the family dynamic is very well established in this.
Yeah.
And like you said, Uncle Buck being the outsider coming in to patch the family with him being neglected from the family and not wanting to be a family man it's just great. It's so easy. It's such a simple premise. It's great. This is making me appreciate the movie even more. Talking about it this way. Again, I mean, as a kid, I obviously didn't dissect a movie like this or like go into Uncle Buck to be like, yo, the writing's fucking awesome. But it's this is why I like this podcast, and I hope other people are enjoying listening to it because it makes us we're discovering this in real time, and I love that. It's fun. It's fun discourse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do like the dynamic between him and Shanice, his girlfriend, how she wants him to be a responsible adult, and it all ties together super well. And I love her character. I think she's great. She is Amy Madigan. She is in Field of Dreams, which we did a podcast on that. And her daughter is Maisie in this movie. Is the little girl that's her daughter in Field of Dreams, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
And Amy Madigan is married to Ed Harris, who we're going to get like a little bit of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon here, even though he's not included in this. Amy Madigan's married to Ed Harris. Ed Harris was in Top Gun Maverick, and Tia, who's what's her name? It's like Jennifer. Jenna Louise Kelly. She is Goose's wife in Top Gun Maverick. She's the one at the house. Yeah. Val Kilmer.
Iceman.
Is that Goose? Iceman.
Yeah.
Sorry. I knew I fucked that up.
Yeah.
She is Iceman, Val Kilmer's wife in Top Gun Maverick. God, I'm going to get butchered for saying that and fucking that up. It's okay. It happens. Yeah, she's in the scene where
Goose is dead, bro.
Meg Ryan was his wife in that. So, yeah, sorry. But yeah, they're both in Top Gun. They're like have a connection to Top Gun Maverick, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and this is her debut, is Tia's debut, Jenna Louisa Kelly. She's great in this. I think she's so good.
Yeah,
she's
definitely
a pouty
plays
little teenager, but
shitty teenager really well.
Yeah. Yeah. But she's so great in this. And despite not getting along in the majority of the film, on camera and on in the film, her and John Candy got along super well outside of filming and everything. And she was honored to work with who she considered a legend, which is super cool. And again, just goes back to what we've kind of mentioned in our previous reviews of other John Candy movies, is that he's just like, he was the nicest person in the world, and was just so generous to everyone. And there's a scene, like, I like the crazy neighbor in this is hilarious.
Yeah.
Laurie Metcalf, she's really funny and really good in this. It's just the wacky, goofy neighbor that just... You always have that in 80s movies. Like, you had that in Harry and the Hendersons.
The nosy, imposing neighbor, yeah.
Yes. That's such a staple of 80s movies. And she's great in this, and, like, I like when she's introduced, and it's also kind of inappropriate. There's a lot of there's, like, innuendos in this movie that are, like... Again, it's not like you said, it's not a kid's. It's a kid's movie, but it's not a kid's movie.
Yeah.
And like him banging the washing machine and like trying to get it to start, she thinks that the mom is basically with John Candy, and that part's kind of funny, especially with the dog like licking her like ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then, like, the whole dancing scene with them is pretty funny and aggressive.
Yeah.
Because she's just, like, a lonely, like, divorcee. Or was she a widower or a divorcee? I don't remember.
Divorcee.
I think so, too. I don't remember, and I apologize. But, yeah, apparently...
Yeah, because she makes a comment that she kept...
About the hyphen.
The last name, and, the hyphen. And
I get compliments on the hyphen. So I'm sure you do. She didn't have a lot of filming experience at the time, and she was she was nervous for the scene of dancing, and she knew John Candy was a pro at like improv, obviously coming from SCTV, and basically John Candy was so good at reading people and putting them at ease that he just read her how nervous she was, and she was totally fine, which is cool. Like, again, just an absolute amazing person that Candy was. I think they're working on, like, I know Ryan Reynolds said he was working on a documentary about John Candy, and I hope they make one, because I can't, like, I want to watch that. Yeah, he's great. And I like the scene. I like the scene with the clown, who I doubt you know who that is, but I will give you massive brownie points if you know who that is. He's in a movie from 1994 with Jim Carrey.
The Mask?
No, I think that came out in '94 as well. But Dumb and Dumber. His name is Mike Starr. He's like the gangster who's like, gas man.
Oh,
how the hell did I know I got gas?
Yeah, no shit.
That's
funny.
him. That's him. And I love when he gets punched in the nose and his nose is like smushed in, and he like does that like almost like dogs shaking out with their like cheeks like like so funny. Yeah, that scene is also kind of interesting. He's like, yeah, I got plenty of dildo jokes. Like, again, like kids. It's a kids movie, but it's not. But yeah, that's classic. I love him. This movie also makes me want to eat certain foods. It makes me want to eat pancakes every time I watch this movie because of the massive pancake he makes for Miles on his birthday, Macaulay Culkin, who is Macaulay Culkin is also excellent in this movie. He's awesome.
Yeah. And this is like clearly what like set him up for Home Alone. Like
100%. Especially since Hughes wrote Home Alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so good in this. So it makes me want pancakes. And when Uncle Buck is on the couch eating Frosted Flakes just dry, that makes me want Frosted Flakes every time. And I've definitely eaten Frosted Flakes when I've watched this movie because of that.
Yeah.
I guess good for product placement. But I just think that's funny every time I see that. I'm like, damn, I want that. I like... this movie's just filled with great scenes. The bowling scene is excellent with the creep that comes over and hits on Tia, who's got like the black eye and like busted lip, and he's got the toothpick he's flipping around in his mouth that gets stuck.
Stabs himself.
And it's almost like Uncle Buck beat him up. And that's why he shrieks and goes away, and when he's like, "Oh, you're here?" Like, so I think that whole scene's funny. It's also the scene where Tia realizes that Uncle Buck basically has a life and a girlfriend.
Yeah,
and that's cool, like discovery in that scene. I also think one of the most iconic scenes is the principal's office. Mm-hmm. Principal's office is incredible, and like him going into the school smoking a cigar to Tone Loc's Wild Thing, and him going to the urinal, the little kid's urinal to pee is hilarious. And then him sitting next to this kid, like being like, "Oh, let me go warm her up for you. Like, I'll take care of you. Like, you're not gonna get in trouble." Like, that is adorable and hilarious. And then he gets in there, and the principal's got a massive mole on her chin. And how he addresses, like, I'm Molly Russell. like my growth. No, not my growth. Like, the whole scene of him just doing that is classic. Mm-hmm. And then him yelling at her, being like, these are just 6-year-old kids. Like, calm down. Yeah. And, like, here's a quarter. Go downtown and have a rat gnaw that thing off your face. It's like, whoa. I love that scene. That, like, for me as a kid, that was probably my favorite scene.
Yeah, and like that's also, that scene is kind of a staple thematically in Hughes movies, where it's like kids are taken too seriously, and like you
great
need to
point.
kind of lay off and let kids be kids. Like that's a lot of the themes in his movies, and it's like we're talking about a 6-year-old in this particular case. Usually they're like high school kids, so it's even more egregious that this lady's saying that this little girl's gonna amount to nothing because she
she's
doesn't
a
want to
bad
be in
egg.
school. Like,
Yeah.
it's like no kid wants to be in school.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That he's all about that school dynamic too. And like obviously high school, like Ferris Bueller, Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, it's all coming of age, which I love. I love coming of age movies. I don't know if I consider this a coming of age story. It might be with Tia's like growing up portion. I guess you could consider that somewhat coming of age.
Yeah, I think this is more just like a family story. Like
Family like dramedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that Tia buries the hatchet. I'll use that phrase since Uncle Buck does. She buries the hatchet with Shanice. I almost said Janice. Shanice, and tells her basically the lie, and then the whole scene where she's at the dining room table saying, "Oh," and he's like charismatic and
The rehearsed
yeah.
list of
And
compliments.
then she kicks open the door and he gets like blasted by the door, which is funny. I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's great. The movie flies by. It's an hour and 40 minutes, which I like literally when I just watched it, I looked up the runtime because I was watching it pretty late at night. And I was like, oh, I thought it would be like an hour and 30. But it's an hour and 40, and I was a little surprised by that. But the movie just flies by for me.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously it's 89, so you're kind of getting out of that. It's the last bit of the 80s trends. Yeah, I mean, this movie's iconic. It really is. And I mean, it made a good amount of money at the box office compared to some of his other movies for sure. But yeah, it's absolutely one of my favorites, and I've been so excited to do this episode. And that's why we saved it for last.
Yeah.
The last of the Uncle Buck or John Candy month. Now, let's see. Out of all these movies, including Planes, Trains, and Automobiles from John Candy that we've watched, and I don't know if I want to consider Brewster's Million a John Candy movie because it's not.
Yeah, not really.
Okay, we'll ignore that one. Out of these, how would you rank them? Again, including Planes, Trains.
I'd put Planes, Trains first, then
I had a
Uncle
feeling.
Buck,
Yep.
then Summer Rental, then Armed and Dangerous. And what am I missing?
You got them all.
That's all of them.
Yeah. I'd go Uncle Buck, Planes, Trains, which they're very close. Very, very close.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd go Armed and Dangerous and Summer Rental.
Okay.
That's what I would do. Are we missing one?
I don't think so. I think that was it,
Okay.
right? Because
Spaceballs. We totally are missing Spaceballs.
oh yeah, Spaceballs. I'd put Spaceballs at the bottom personally. It's funny, but I liked all the other movies.
And it's also
more.
not really a John Candy starring role. So
Yeah, it's not as John Candy centric as
yeah,
the other ones.
as these other ones. So we'll ignore that one for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this month. I definitely want to watch some of his other movies, like Who's Harry Crumb, and I think he has a cameo in or a small role in JFK from Oliver Stone, which I've never seen, and I've always wanted to watch that. That's supposed to be really good.
Yeah, I've wanted to watch that too. I just need to find 4 hours or whatever.
I fucking I know. That's another thing I'm sick of. It's like I've talked about it, like 4-hour movies lately, and biopics especially. I talk to my friend Brandon about this all the time, about how there's all these biopics coming out because fucking Bohemian Rhapsody did well and won
Yeah.
Oscars. It's like, oh, let's jump on that trend and do fucking biopics.
Yeah.
That shit annoys me. But speaking of trends, we are next month for December. We are going to do sequels / legacy sequels. Or no, we're just doing sequels. Sequel month. We are going to do legacy
next month
sequels
is-
coming up. Sequels.
Yeah,
So we're
next
going to
month
start off.
is pure
Blood.
sequels of movies that we've already watched.
Yes. Yeah, so we're starting with First Blood Part 2, which I'm excited for. I haven't seen that in a while. And we've talked about that movie before. We're going to do, what's after that? Back to the Future?
Yeah, Back to the
Part 2?
Future Part 2, Lethal Weapon 2, Beverly Hills
Yep.
Cop 2, and then Temple of Doom, which I'm
Yeah, that's
super excited for.
we've got it. Yeah, that's going to be a great month. I'm super excited for that, especially to end the year. And then in January, we're going to do the legacy sequels.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get into that at the end of December. But I really liked and enjoyed John Candy Month. I'm very much looking forward to Sequels Month. And yeah, anything else you want to add, Jake?
I don't think so.
Cool.
Make sure you like, subscribe, rate, share with your friends, follow us on Instagram.
Yeah,
Movie
feel free
Matters
to go back.
Podcast.
Feel free to go back and listen to our Planes, Trains, and Automobiles review as well, especially
Yeah.
with Thanksgiving coming up. We hope you and your family and your loved ones and your friends all have a great Thanksgiving. And we'll catch you next month with some sequels.
Yep. See you.